I met June on a night that smelled like beer foam and charcoal smoke, the kind of Chicago June night when you forget the city ever had winter. We were at a block party in Logan Square where everyone looked like they'd just fallen out of a thrift store photo shoot. Soft band tees, scuffed sneakers, stray glitter catching the streetlights. Liam kept a protective hand at the small of my back as he steered me toward his group of friends, the ones I'd heard about for months. "That's June," he said, voice warm, the way you speak when you're proud of your people. "She's basically my platonic soulmate." She turned at her name, and I felt the recognition hit first in my fingers. A little electric spark ran up my hand to my shoulder, as if my body had kept a memory filed away under skin when I deleted everything else from my phone. I had known her before she was June, and I had loved him before she was her. June wore a yellow sundress and black boots, a combination that shouldn't have worked on paper but did in the way her stance cut the pavement into a stage. She had a slim gold hoop in one ear and a single streak of teal eyeliner that lifted like a kite at the corner of her eyes. Her mouth opened with delighted surprise when she saw me, then stayed slightly parted, just enough for me to see the exact second she understood that I understood. I felt Liam's palms settle between my shoulder blades, a question there that he didn't shape into words. The grill hissed behind us. Someone sang along to a song we'd all pretend not to know by heart. A dog in a party hat barked twice and then gave up on having opinions. June stepped forward. "Mira," she said, both of us laughing when we spoke at the same time. My name on her tongue felt like an echo in a stairwell. It took me half a second to think of what to call her. I heard the old name rise up like a bubble and pop before it hit air. "June," I said instead, as if I had always said it. "Hi." Liam's hand lifted away. I heard his curiosity shift into focus. "Wait, you two," he started. June slipped a hand over mine briefly, a soft press, and then let go. "We had a mutual friend in undergrad," she said calmly, smiling at me, making it a story about dorm kitchens and bad iced coffee. I nodded, grateful and disoriented. Liam laughed, because he loves it when the world turns out to be small enough to fit in his pocket. "Of course you did," he said. "This city is a quilt." He leaned over to hug June and kiss her temple. "You good?" he asked. She nodded, and I watched the muscles in her jaw work as she made a decision in her head, one I couldn't see yet. Later, when the band was doing a cover that made the crowd louder than the amps, June and I found ourselves near the line for elote. She held a sweating cup of limeade between both palms like it was a delicate animal. "You look happy," she said quietly. "I am," I said, and the truth of it surprised me. He's steady. "That's very Liam," she said, a small smile. "Steady as gravity. And you?" I asked, trying to keep my mouth from running ahead of my kindness. "You look." "Different?" she offered. "Yes." She tilted her face toward the neon glow of the taco truck menu, let that fluorescent pink paint her cheekbone. "It's good different. It's my different." She took a breath. "We should talk sometime, if you want." "I do," I said quickly, more quickly than I expected. I felt it like thirst. "I do." Liam appeared at my side, having acquired a paper boat of fries dusted with something orange and thrilling. He fed me one. I pretended to burn my tongue to make him laugh. June watched us with a softness that wasn't envy and wasn't pain. It was that exact look you give when you realize you can hold two truths at once without your hands shaking. I didn't sleep much that night. The ceiling fan squeaked a rhythm above me, a tired metronome, while outside someone honked a horn to a full stop, and then, inexplicably again for emphasis. I texted June at 2 a.m. because that had been our currency once, late, long, threaded conversations that made mornings feel like hangovers. My message was simple. "Coffee?" She responded immediately, which felt like a small miracle in a city always lagging a few seconds behind itself. "We set it for Sunday." She sent a smiley that didn't try to be cute. I sighed into my pillow, letting my body remember the outline of a different kind of yearning, one that had nothing to do with wanting to kiss someone and everything to do with wanting a version of yourself back. Back when she was Jude, we dated exactly 9 months senior year. A little calendar baby of a relationship, complete with an anniversary we celebrated by splitting a brownie in the campus cafe and talking about our 5-year plans like people who had ever looked 5 years ahead without getting dizzy. Jude was funny in quiet ways, an index card of perfect jokes you only discovered if you stayed after class. He ran too hot, always burning off whatever he touched. Projects, friendships, nights out. I thought of us then as two people holding opposite ends of a rope over a canyon and calling that balance. What we couldn't name was the shape of the thing that pushed between us, the faint thrum of wrongness that hummed even on the good days. He cried after sex once, silently, and when I asked why, he shook his head and said something about finals, about sleep. I tried to be the kind of girlfriend who doesn't ask questions. We were 22 and devout in our ignorance. When we broke up, we said it was grad school and logistics and schedules, and some of that was true. Now, in a cafe that didn't exist back then, I watched June wrap both hands around a ceramic mug painted with a ring of blue forget-me-nots. She had the same mole near her left eyebrow, the same quizzical crease when she listened closely. Her voice had softened at the edges, and her laugh arrived sooner. We chose a corner table near the window that caught the street like a camera lens. Outside, a teenager in a powder blue varsity jacket practiced dance moves, pausing to glance at his reflection in a car window, unashamed. June noticed him too. God, I hope he never unlearns that, she said. How did you meet Liam? I asked, and she smiled as if I'd asked how she learned to whistle. Wicker Park Film Society, she said. He wandered into a screening of a documentary about a Finnish accordion festival, stayed for the Q&A, and I decided I would either adopt him or befriend him. Friendship won. She sipped. He knows me. He knew me before. She lifted her eyebrows. Before I knew me. He was there for the beginning. He's been there for everything after. She let that settle between us. I haven't told him about us. I wasn't sure if it was mine to tell. It's both of ours, I said, and immediately felt that was too neat. But I get it. She studied me. You're angry? She asked, not skeptical, just curious. No, I said, and found that it was true in the obvious ways and untrue in the smaller ones. Startled? I feel like I walked into a hallway I used to know with my eyes closed, and the walls are closer than I remembered. That's a very Mira sentence, she said, eyes crinkling. It makes emotional sense and is impossible to diagram. We laughed, let the ease between us reknit across the table. A barista called out a name that no one claimed. June turned her mug in slow circles. I kept imagining running into you, she said. Not like this exactly, but not like this. What did you imagine? I imagined that I would be braver than I am, that I would know what to say right away. But I've learned that knowing yourself is more like learning a piece of music by ear. You think you've got it, and then there's a bridge you weren't expecting. You start again. You get closer. I wanted to reach across the table and touch the back of her hand where the veins made a little river map, but we had already used up so much tenderness. I chewed a bite of banana bread slowly, the way my therapist says slows time enough for Choice to enter the room. It's good to see you, June, I said. I like that you're June. She breathed out, a visible relief, and lifted her hand over mine, not quite touching, the air between our skin humming like the faintest charge. It's good to be June, she said. I told Liam that evening, because whatever else I've learned about love, I've learned that secrets ferment. We were on my couch under a thrifted quilt with a pattern that looked like snowflakes collapsing. The Cubs game had ended, mercifully, and the commentators were discussing nothing with zeal. Liam was sorting screws into a repurposed pickle jar. How he acquired screws without projects remains a mystery I adore. June and I dated in college, I said. He kept sorting for 2 more seconds before he looked up. The jar sang a tiny glass note when a screw landed wrong. You dated June, he repeated, careful. Dated? Dated, I said. I told him about campus, about late-night walks to the lake, about the way we made up reasons to hold hands in winter, calling it practical, calling it mitten sharing. I told him about the breakup, how we set it down like a dish too hot to hold and then forgot where we put it. Liam ran a hand through his hair and made it worse. He has a way of listening that sometimes looks like quiet panic, but it's just his brain fetching chairs for all the information so it can sit down properly. Okay, he said finally. Okay, how do you feel? I loved him for asking that first. Confused but not in a bad way, I said. Nervous to hurt you, protective of June, protective of the memory of us. But also, I reached for language and found I had to build it from new materials. I feel proud of her. Liam exhaled, a long, whistling thing. I'm glad you told me, he said. I'm glad you two are talking, he swallowed. Do you want? He leaned his head back on the couch and shut his eyes. God, I'm not jealous. I don't think. I'm just rearranging furniture in my head. I took his hand, the palm familiar, the callus at the base of his fingers a little map I knew by heart. You're my person, I said, not because I needed to, but because truth likes the sound of its own voice. But there's history here, and also there's something about seeing someone you once knew in the wrong key finally find the right octave. He opened his eyes, watery, and smiled. That's very you, he said, pulling me in so our shoulders bumped. After a minute of quiet, he added, Do you think we should all hang out then? Like, explicitly? He said it like he was proposing a field trip. If you're okay with that, I said, it might help with the furniture in your head. He laughed, kissing the top of my head. I love you, he said simply. I love you, I said back. The jar chimed again when he set it down. The commentators had moved on to weather. Tomorrow would be clear. June suggested a movie night, because of course she did. Her apartment smelled like basil and clean laundry, and everything was arranged with a casual precision that felt like a secret handshake. Plants hung from macrame planters, their leaves making quiet little handprints on the windows. On her bookshelf, a framed photo of her and Liam made me smile. They were both squinting into the sun, one of those happy mistakes that turns into your favorite shot. She wore black jeans and a lavender sweater that matched nothing, and therefore everything. We watched a 90s movie that aged like a grapefruit. Bright, a little bitter. There were 3 of us on the couch, a careful geometry. June sat cross-legged, a bowl of popcorn in her lap, and I had a memory flash of Jude tossing M&Ms into my mouth from across a room, and the 2 of us dissolving into giggles at our own choreography. I let the memory arrive and depart without sending it to voicemail. Liam made snarky comments under his breath, and June shushed him theatrically. At some point, June paused the movie and said she had to show us something. She disappeared into the bedroom and came back with a shoebox wrapped in a scarf. I found these when I moved, she said, untying the scarf like she was unwrapping a gift from someone she was finally ready to love. Inside were Polaroids from senior year. The colors had faded into that decade smell of dust and sugar. There we were in all our weird baby glory. Me with a blunt-cut bob and half an eyebrow too thin. Jude with sideburns he should have been arrested for. Our friends draped over couches like cats. June placed one on the coffee table, a photo of us at the lakeshore, jeans cuffed, laughing at something too small to photograph. My hand was on Jude's chest. There was a shadow pressing forward where the sun caught his ribs. I could see it now, what I couldn't then. The tightness, the performance, the way he was already halfway out of the frame of himself. Liam picked up the picture and smiled. Quiet. Look at you, he said to me, affectionate and surprised. June watched my face. I held the photo and then set it back gently. We were trying so hard to be something, I said. You were, she agreed, and now you are. She tapped the picture once, as if blessing it. I keep thinking about how people say you only live once, but it feels more like you live many times, and some of those lives overlap inside you. I feel all my lives at once sometimes. It's noisy, but I'm learning which ones are music and which ones are just traffic. After the movie, Liam went to refill our drinks, and June and I stood in the small kitchen, pretending to talk about seltzer flavors. She touched her wrist absent-mindedly, and I noticed a small tattoo, an outline of a wave. New? I asked. Last year, she said. It's for starting again. I'm glad we're friends, I said. The word felt good, new. She looked at me with that open, precise gaze that made me feel more like myself than like her memory of me. I am too, she said. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I think part of me was afraid you'd... She stopped. No, I was afraid I'd become a version of myself I used to be when I saw you again. But that's not how this is. After we left, Liam and I walked along the river even though it was late and the air had a taste like old coins. He held my hand in his jacket pocket, rubbing my fingers like worry beads. She's great, he said, and then quickly, you knew that. She is, I said. We stopped at the railing where the lights made the water perform. How are you? He looked at the water like it might answer for him. "I think I was more scared of ghosts than of people," he said. And the ghosts didn't show up. Or if they did, they were friendly. He pressed a kiss to my temple. "I won't pretend I understand everything, but I know what matters. I know you. I know June. I know what it looks like when someone steps into their skin like a room with good light." We made a ritual of it. June and I met for coffee or walks or thrifting. Sometimes Liam joined, sometimes not. Once we went to a community talk about trans healthcare because June said she wanted to support, and I said I wanted to learn without making her be my teacher. We took notes like we were in lecture again, shoulders lined up, underlining phrases that felt like doors opening in language. Afterward, we split a slice of key lime pie and argued about the merits of meringue. On a bright Sunday, June asked if I'd help her pick out a dress for an office party that had the potential to be either tolerable or a sociological field study. We wound through the racks at a vintage shop that smelled like perfume and dust, and the ghosts of wardrobes passed. She held up a shimmering green thing that would have turned her into the northern lights. I shook my head, laughing. She chose a wrap dress in a deep blue that made her eyes look like something jewelers study. In the dressing room, she stepped out shyly, like a person visiting a new house for the first time. "Too much?" she asked. "It's exactly right," I said, and felt something in my chest like a small applause. "How do you feel?" She blinked at herself in the mirror. "Like I can hear myself," she said. "Like the voice in my ribs is speaking at a volume I can finally understand." I remembered Jude's anger, which used to arrive with no address on it, and how I mistook it for a personality trait instead of a symptom. I remembered the way he would freeze if I touched his chest, like a deer hearing an engine far off. "I'm sorry," I said, surprising us both. "For what?" "For not seeing you," I said. "For seeing you but not seeing you." I gestured, helpless. "You know." "I do," she said softly, "but you can't see what someone won't let you see. Back then, I built a fortress and then got mad when no one visited." We paid for the dress, and the cashier complimented June's eyeliner. She smiled with her teeth, the kind of smile that would make the cashier remember it later and feel inexplicably better about the day. There was a night in late October when the city remembered it was capable of cruelty. Rain came sideways and mean. June texted me that her building's heat was out. I told her to come over, and 10 minutes later she knocked, damp and apologetic, with a Tupperware of lentil soup because she can't arrive anywhere empty-handed. We ate on the couch with our knees touching under a blanket. Liam was out of town for a conference, and the apartment felt too quiet, like a theater after everyone has left. We drank tea and watched a show about people cooking elaborate desserts, as if sugar could fix history. At some point, June's head slipped onto my shoulder, and my body registered the old gesture with a thud of nostalgia. I didn't move for a long time because it felt like a kind of respect. When she sat up, her eyes were wet. "I was thinking about the first time I cried after we slept together," she said, wincing at the bluntness. "I told you it was stress." "I remember," I said, throat tight. "I was mourning," she said. I didn't know how to name it then. Mourning the version of me I couldn't inhabit. I felt like my body was costume and my voice was dubbed. It wasn't you. It wasn't anything you did or didn't do. It was me against myself. She rubbed her hands together. "I should have told you, but I didn't have words without setting everything on fire." I took one of her hands and held it. "Thank you," I said, "for telling me now." I didn't ask for forgiveness for either of us. I don't believe in retroactive absolution. I believe in the sharp, small joys of getting to the truth finally, even if it arrives late and damp and carrying Tupperware. When Liam came back the next afternoon, June had already returned home to a fixed radiator. I told him about the storm, the soup, the show. I told him about the conversation, about the words, "my body was costume," and watched him absorb them like a person who knows what to do with delicate things. He cupped my jaw and studied my face. "You okay?" he asked. "I am," I said. I feel like someone opened a window. For his birthday, we threw Liam a backyard party with string lights and a playlist so good people kept trying to steal it. June showed up early to help me chop onions and ended up reorganizing my spice shelf with an elegance that made me blush. She wore the blue dress again, with a denim jacket covered in enamel pins, a fox, a book, a tiny planet. When Liam blew out his candles, his eyes were closed for an extra beat, and later he told me he had wished for exactly this trilogy of us. "That's greedy," I said. "You only get one wish." He grinned like a boy with pockets full of stolen peaches. "Worth it," he said. The last time I went through a breakup, I thought of it as amputating a limb to save the body. The phantom aches lasted for months. Now, what I had with June felt more like the opposite. Like finding out a limb I thought I'd lost had grown back on both of us. Different but functional, tattooed with small reminders of where the scars had been. I still had love for her, but it folded itself into a new shape that fit into my life without bruising anything it touched. When we hugged goodbye after the party, she murmured, "my friend," into my hair in a way that made me swallow hard. In December, on a day that turned your breath into ropes, Liam and I ran into June and her date at the Christ Kindle Market. The four of us huddled together near the spiced wine stand like penguins, laughing at how our noses had the same unhappy shade of red. June's date, Elena, with a constellation of freckles across her nose and a brisk, kind way of speaking, offered us a taste of her hot cider. June looked happy in a way that didn't make me ache. Later that night, under blankets and the click-click of the baseboard heat, I told Liam, "I think the part of me that was afraid is quiet now." He brushed hair off my forehead. "What was it afraid of?" he asked. "That I wasn't allowed to love what came before," I said. That moving forward meant leaving a trail of hollow rooms. But it turns out you can keep the furniture that still fits and let the rest go. I smiled. "You said you were rearranging furniture in your head. How's the feng shui now?" He laughed, kissing me. "I think I've gotten rid of some sharp corners," he said, and I put a plant by the window. Winter rolled itself tight around the city, and then, of course, it unrolled. We made it through to spring because that is what cities and people do when they can. The day the magnolias blew open in our neighborhood, June texted me a photo of a petal on her palm with no caption. I texted back a heart, then another. Later, we met for ice cream and split a scoop of something pretentious and perfect, roasted strawberry with basil. When we said goodbye, we didn't make it a scene. We didn't name what we had made out of what we used to be. We just let it stand there near us like a well-built table, steady enough to set our coffee on, sturdy enough to lean against when the room spins. Every once in a while, when I pass the mirror, I see not just me, but the layers of me I've been, held together by the thread of the names people have given me, the names I've kept, the ones I let go. June taught me that. Liam, too. What we call ourselves changes what we can hear. When I think of us now, the three of us, our messy overlapping Venn diagram, I don't see a problem to solve or a triangle to negotiate. I see a small neighborhood inside a city, 3 apartments with open doors, plants traded and recipes texted, the kind of place where you can borrow a sweater without asking and return it washed, ready for the next season. On the first warm evening of the year, we sat on June's stoop eating takeout that leaked orange oil through the paper bags. The street was alive with bikes and strollers and dogs conducting complicated diplomacy. June turned a piece of garlic bread in her hands and said, "I like who I am here." She meant the city, the stoop, the people. She meant all of it. "Me too," I said. Liam squeezed my knee and nodded at June. "Me 3. The sun slid down in a hurry, like someone was tugging it along by a string. A kid practiced skateboard tricks at the corner while his mom clapped politely. Somewhere a saxophone was either having a crisis or inventing a new religion. June leaned back on her elbows, eyes half closed. "I used to think love had to be shaped like a window you throw yourself out of," she said. "But it turns out sometimes it's a porch light you leave on." I rested my head on Liam's shoulder and looked at June. "Let's keep the light on then," I said. We sat there until the pizza was cold and the mosquitoes started writing their rude poems on our ankles. We said goodnight the way people do when they know it isn't. I walked home with Liam, the city thrumming around us. At the corner, a storefront had written in chalk on its board, "You are exactly on time." I believed it. I believed everything I could hold gently. I reached for Liam's hand. We kept walking. The porch lights bloomed on, one by one, like a chorus joining in, and for once the harmony was easy to hear.